There are 5 dangerous faults which may affect a general. 1, recklessness, which leads to destruction. 2, cowardice, which leads to capture. So those 2, you got one guy that's a maniac that doesn't care, is going to go get after it, he's going to die. You got someone else that's a coward, he's going to get captured. 3, a hasty temper that can be provoked by insults. Dangerous. A delicacy of honor that is sensitive to shame. Sort of the same thing. And an over-solicitude for his men, which exposes him to worry and trouble. An over-solicitude, that's basically you over-affectionate. You care about the men so much that it exposes you to worry and trouble. These are the 5 besetting sins of a general, ruinous to the conduct of war. Some things to watch out for. And it's interesting, obviously the one that's I guess the most controversial to me is that over-solicitude for his men, which exposes him to worry and trouble. Because in the modern military, he was dealing with conscripts. So it's interesting, even conscripts, back then he's saying you could get too affectionate with your conscripts. And now we have brothers. And so you're gonna care about your guys. You're going to care about your guys more than anything else in the world. But what you have to counter that with is not, hey, I'm not going to care about them. No, it's I'm going to make sure I do everything I can to keep them safe.
Yeah. I think, like, how in a lot of companies they discourage fraternizing with, your coworkers. So I used to work in the nightclub industry where, from time to time people would hook up. So what that can result in is, people who are too focused on the relationship between each other versus their job.
Oh, yeah.
So, this is a total assumption, but maybe that's what he's talking about.
No, that's exactly what he's talking about. That's exactly what he's talking about. But if you take that into the military scenario, it's, like I said, you're going to care about your guys so much, and you have to counter that with the fact that you have a duty,
right? And
you have a job,
yeah,
and that everybody on your team, like when you're in the SEAL teams, you all know the risk.
Yeah,
everybody knows the risk. Everybody knows that when you go on an operation, it might be your last operation. You get hit with an ID, you get shot, you get mortared, you get blown up. I mean, everybody accepts that risk.
Yeah,
and that therefore, as a leader, you're not imposing that risk upon them. They volunteered for that risk. And I think that's what allows a modern military commander to say, hey, I love these guys, but they all know what they signed up for. There's going to be risk here, and we got a job to do. As opposed to, hey, I love these guys. They don't want to be here, right, and I'm going to send them to their deaths. That would be a different scenario, a harder scenario.
Yeah, or you got close. Let's say, you're in command of, 10 guys. 5 of those guys are your best friends, and you get too attached in the sense that you have a mission that you have to do, a dangerous one. But you're like, hey, I'm not going to send those 5 guys because they're going to be at risk. I want to keep them safe, so I don't want to send them there. So the other 5 guys go rather than the 10, and messes up your whole job.
Which, oddly enough, I always send like the guys I loved into the worst scenarios.
Yeah,
all my brothers, they would be lining up and saying, "I'm going," and it was fired up.
See, you're obviously a very specific type of person, and your guys probably are too, I would imagine. But still, you're still exercising that discipline between, them potentially going to their death and that job you guys have to do. So you're thinking of it in a smarter way.
You know what's interesting? I just thought of this. Like, if a guy got in trouble for whatever reason when we were over on deployment, whenever I was on deployment in combat, if a guy got in trouble, you know what their punishment would be? You're not allowed to go on a mission. I know. So that just tells you what kind of an attitude,
Yeah.
the guys that we're working with.
Yeah.
Is like, oh, you can't go on these next 3 missions.
Yeah.
The guys are angry.
Yeah, and
They're hurt because they realize they're letting their buddies down.
Yeah.
And if something goes wrong and they're not there, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, and their duty, their job is it's part of them. Where I was listening to this thing where he was talking about the Amish people, right? And they're really into work, hard work and stuff. So one of the punishments for the kids would be you're not allowed to work.
Yeah, that's the same.
And it's like,
same
dang,
idea
it's
right
like
there.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah. Meanwhile, my kids, I gotta beat them senseless to get them to do any work. Just kidding. But I guarantee they're not working as hard as some Amish kid out in the field or putting up buildings with the wood nails that they do. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, the work is obviously part of their identity.
Yeah.
So like, it's certain things people, let's say quote unquote normal people might find like exercise, for example. Like if let's say you're just an average person who's like, man, I'm gonna make a New Year's resolution. I'm gonna lose some weight or whatever.
Right.
I'm gonna get a trainer.
It's hard for them. It's work for them.
Right. So if the
But
trainer's
other
like,
people-
hey, today's rest day, they're be like, oh, sweet, But then you take you, for example, like how you're saying your wife is like, hey, maybe don't go to jiu-jitsu today. You're all pissed.
Yeah.
So it's the exact opposite. But so that's kind of the scenario when it's ingrained in you and it starts to become part of your identity, work or not work. You want to get that done.
Yeah. That's interesting how those embedded feelings develop in your life. But what an awesome deal. Like, if you think about that, we would actually, if we had to punish our guys, we'd punish them by saying you can't go on 2 missions.
That's perfect. Yeah.
And they'd be angry. They'd be bummed.
dope.
They'd be let down. They'd like help everyone get ready, and they'd stand there when everyone was leaving.
And
watch
learn
them
their
leave.
lesson for sure.
Hurt them. Yeah. All right. Next, when the enemy is close at hand and remains quiet, he is relying on the natural strength of his position.